Hi there, my name is Cauvery Madhavan and I'm one of the writers from Hope Road Publishing. It's been such a strange year. The days have absolutely dragged through this pandemic, and yet the year has just flown by, and all of a sudden we're here at Christmas. Um, I love getting books at Christmas, and I like to give books as gifts as well. Books have such an ability to take us to places that we just can't get to at the moment. I'm going to read to you from my new book, The Tainted. It's set in India and in Ireland, and it is the story of the mutiny, loosely based on the mutiny of the Connaught Rangers, who were a very famous Irish regiment, part of the British Empire, and were posted in India in 1920. And because of what was happening in Ireland with the Black and Tans, the soldiers mutinied. And my book is a retelling of the events that led up to the mutiny, as well as the aftermath and the story of the people that were left behind. So I'm going to take you with this reading straight to India, and it's just a short extract, and I hope you enjoy it. So it starts off with the regimental chaplain, Father Jerome. Father Jerome headed off briskly to his small office on the far side of the parade grounds, next to the NCO's mess. It was here, every Sunday after Mass, that he spent 2 hours or so reading out letters and writing replies for the soldiers in the regiment. A good many of them were illiterate, barely able to sign their own names. Michael Flaherty felt desperately sorry for the men who were dependent on the priest to relay news from home. Reports of births and deaths, intimate declarations of love and longing, litanies of complaint, requests for more money, news of illnesses and tragedy filled the letters that arrived from Ireland, and the priest was privy to them all. The men had no choice but to share their most personal details with Father Jerome as he read letters from their wives and sweethearts, their parents and children, and then patiently wrote out the replies back. There had been chatter, all right, about the Black and Tans, but much of it was futile, wet canteen talk, fueled by the beer sold there, only to be put aside the next morning, when all that mattered was surviving another viciously hot day. The bugle sounded at 5 o'clock in the morning, an hour before dawn, but most mornings Michael found the heat had aroused him earlier, and if it wasn't the heat, it was the foul breath of the old native barber as he leant over Michael's sleeping body to shave his face. The regiment paraded while it was still cool. Just as dawn broke, the early morning marches taking the same old routes with hardly a variation in order to avoid the local sholas, which were patches of mountainous forest surrounded by grassland. These areas were considered a malaria risk. Also, they were frequented by wild boar that invariably caused the officers' horses to bolt. The hill stations in the Nandagiri range could not compare in altitude with the North Indian Himalayas and towns like Darjeeling or Shimla, which Michael had heard were very cool even in the summer. With spring at its end in South India, the temperature in Nandagiri had been rising steadily, along with everyone's irritability. Morning parade was the only major exertion of the day, and it was followed by breakfast at 9 o'clock, after which the men headed back to their barracks with nothing to do except lie on their beds and threaten the pankawalas with fates worse than death if they should dare slacken their efforts. Camp followers arrived in a steady stream all through the morning until lunch, squatting outside the barrack verandas and setting up impromptu stalls on the bare ground. They cried their wares unceasingly: tea, tailoring services, minor birds and tame mongoose, coffee, postcards of naked women, cigarettes, fruits, buns and cakes, nasty-looking herbs and potions to keep your dick from shriveling up while you queued impatiently at the rag, and medicines to cure you if you got anything more from the native whores than you paid for. If you were awake, too hot to read, and if you hadn't the money for a game of cards or the energy to listen to another man's woes, you could spend your time in a hammock, under the pankas, on the veranda, watching the whole tamasha, the great Indian circus of chancers, swindlers and crooks, unfold before your very eyes. And even if the scene was no longer as novel a spectacle as when the regiment had first arrived in Nandagiri a few months ago, without this daily performance, life in the barracks would be unbearably dull. In the afternoon, everything came to a standstill. The fragrant cuscus tatties were lowered down over every window and door, and the bishtis drenched them with water. The barracks became cool, dark havens as the pankawalas got a steady rhythm going on the ropes. As the water evaporated from the sweet-smelling grass blinds and the pankas circulated the cool air around the darkened rooms, it was possible, in those couple of hours, to drift off into a hypnotic sleep of the sort that only a tropical afternoon could induce. I hope you enjoyed that. Happy Christmas, everybody, and I hope you get all the books that your heart desires.